A gute Woche, Shavua Tov. It is Motzei Shabbos, Parshas Eikev, Chof Menachem. Today was the yahrzeit of the Rebbe's father, the Holy Tzaddik Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, and mentioned some stories about the Rebbe's father. He literally gave up his life for keeping Yiddishkeit alive in Russia. He was for 30 years. He was the rabbi of the called Yekaterinoslav. Today it's Dnipropetrovsk. And he was arrested in 1939 for fighting for Judaism, for the crime of keeping Judaism alive. And he was exiled and tortured in exile. And that's where he passed away. And today, he was buried in exile in Kazakhstan, in Almaty. And today that place is a place of Torah and Judaism. There's a huge center, Chabad center there. And also in the city of Dnipropetrovsk, Dnipro is also the city of the Rebbe's father, has the greatest Jewish center in Europe, the Menorah Center, with Judaism alive. And we see the victory of Judaism, the fighting for Yiddishkeit, which ultimately prevails. So today we continue and we'll finish the chapter 5, letter 5 in Agerat Hakodesh in the Tanya. And here the Alter Rebbe talks about completing the job of making God's name. And in the beginning of the letter, the Alter Rebbe asked, it says, Vayas David Shem, King David made a name. We explained in the beginning what it means, the simple understanding that King David made a name for himself, either as being a hero, a warrior, or as being kind and even to allow to the enemy to be buried and so on. And then Alter Rebbe quoted the interpretation of the Zohar, the mystical interpretation. It says that King David made a name for God. He made God's name. How? By doing charity. And the Rebbe went into long explanations. What does it mean? Making God's name through charity. And he explained how Hashem's name, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, this is the source of the life in all of the world, the spiritual world and the physical world. Specifically, Yud is connected with the world to come, where godliness is more revealed. And ultimately the Hey, the last Hey, represents God's speech, which is about creating this physical world. And here the Alter Rebbe says, in order to bring down God's energy to this world, God's light and life to this world, it is done through two types of souls. There's the souls of Talmidei Chachamim, the Torah scholars. They through their studying of the Torah, they bring down this God's wisdom, which is the Torah, to the lower worlds, the spiritual worlds. And through giving tzedakah, through the acts of charity, to giving to the poor, all kinds of all forms of charity, whether giving money, whether being kind to people, these acts of charity cause Hashem to react in the same way in bringing down this light down to this world. And he explained that in the beginning of creation, when God created the world, the world was built with kindness, meaning there was no one there to create, to awaken God's kindness, because there was nothing else. Hashem created the world with the attribute of kindness. But now that the world was created and we are here, we are the ones who, through our acts, we trigger, so to speak, God's kindness to bring down to this world, and that is through the acts of tzedakah. So basically it is a combination. And it is sort of a teamwork. We have those neshamas that they deal with studying the Torah deeply, and through their Torah study, they bring down godliness into the higher spiritual worlds, and then we finish the job by bringing it down to this physical world. And let's see inside the way the Alter Rebbe says this. Says the Alter Rebbe, however, after the creation of men to work it, his lifelong task being to draw down to this world a flow of divine energy by means of an arousal from below, meaning by means of his own spiritual labors. That's what Hashem does now through the work of men, to bring down the godliness into this world. How is it done? We are awakening. We are we cause the arousal from above through our actions. Azai, kol lisarusa de le'ele, la'oira midas chesed ha'elyenu b'sarusa de le'tata. Every arousal from above to arouse the attribute of supreme kindness depends on an arousal from below. What is the arousal from below? Through the acts of charity and kindness that Jews perform in this world. So everything what we do, as it says, Hashem tzilcha, God is your shadow. It's like when we act in a certain way, it triggers a similar act, corresponding act above there. That's why there was once one of the Rebbes, I believe it was the Tzemach Tzedek, when he was praying with a somber tone, a somber mood, and if I'm not mistaken, it was the Alter Rebbe had mentioned to him not to do it. He told him to do it b'simcha. Pray with in a way of a joy and a happiness. Whatever, when you pray, the way you set yourself up here, it is triggering a similar act above. So the kindness that we act here in this world, we also trigger a similar kindness that comes from Hashem. That is why our sages of blessed memory have said, whoever says that he has nothing but Torah and thus no kindly deed, does not have even Torah. If you want to have Torah, and Alter Rebbe is going to explain why, you have to have it along with acts of kindness. Rather, one ought to engage in Torah and in the performance of acts of loving kindness. So in other words, here we say that the tzedakah is what brings the olam chesed ibana. The world is built with kindness, with charity. But we do know also that the world stands on Torah. The Torah is what when we study Torah, this is what keeps the world going. And the Rebbe explains that it has to be both. It cannot be one or the other. Says the Alter Rebbe, Kini, Agam deiraise mechochma nafkas, for though the Torah derives from Chochma, ubeiraise miskayim olma ba'inun delon ba, and the world subsists by virtue of Torah, and those who discourse in it, those who study the Torah, this is what keeps the world going. כי בדיבורם ממשיכים האורס והשפועס והשראס חוכמה אלוה מקיר התורה לבחינס אויסיס הדיבור שבהם נברא העולם. Because by speaking of the Torah subject, they elicit illuminations and effusions from Supreme Chachma, the source of the Torah, into the plane of the letters of speech with which the world was created. Kemaima, Razal, al tikre boneich ala boneich. As our sages of blessed memory said, with regard to Torah scholars, do not read bonaich, which means your children, do not read banaich ala bonaich, but bonaich. Bonaich means your builders, for they build the world through their Torah study. So here we say what builds the world? The kindness, and here we say Torah study builds the world. So that's what the Alter Rebbe is going to explain. That yes, it is true. We need the Torah scholars to draw down to the God's wisdom, which is the source of everything, the root of everything. But their Torah study only draws it down to a certain level. To bring it down to this world, we need to have those who do tzedakah also. And that's why the Torah study also has to be accompanied with acts of kindness. Nevertheless, this flow of Chachma to the letters of speech is a great descent. To accomplish this, it is necessary to arouse supernal chesed, which like water is drawn down from a high place to a low place. How is it done? By means of an arousal from below, through acts of charity and kindness here below. Whereby ones diffuse life and kindness to revive the spirit of the humble and downcast. They said there was once a story of there was a tzaddik Reb Zusha of Anipoli, and he was a very poor man and suffered a lot. And there was a man in his town that saw him, the way he was dressed, and obviously saw someone who needs charity, and he slipped in some money. He gave him some money to support him. And that day, this man, he was a businessman, and he saw a lot of very successful day. And he was thinking, oh, maybe it's because of the tzedakah that I gave that poor man. So he did the same thing the next day, and he started giving him regularly. And sure enough, his business was booming. Everything went so well. And he figured, yes, because he supports this tzaddik. Then one day he comes to the synagogue to give him tzedakah, and he is not there. He asked around, where is Reb Zusha? They told him he traveled to his rabbi. Who is his rabbi? They told him this is Mezrich, the Maggid of Mezrich. So he thinks to himself, wow, I'm giving charity to this man, who obviously is a holy man because I became rich of it because of that. So now I know that he is a rabbi. So that his rabbi must be a very holy man. So he decided to travel to Mezrich. And he figured he's going to give to the very holy tzaddik, the big tzaddik. Now he's going to take his richness to a whole new level. And sure enough, he comes to Mezrich, he gives the Mezrich Maggid the big sum amount of money for tzedakah. He comes back home, and from that day on, his business started going down. And he lost almost everything. So he came back to Mezrich. And he told the Maggid, the Mezrich Maggid, so I don't understand. I gave tzedakah to your student, and I was blessed. Now, I'm giving to you tzedakah. I figured I'm giving to a holy man, and now I lost everything. So he's thinking to himself, is that a real holy man? Maybe he's not so holy. God forbid. And the Mizritcha Maggid tells him, listen, let me explain to you. Our sages tell us that Hashem acts, whatever happens, the way a person acts, that's the way it is reacting above in heaven. When you were acting charitable without asking questions, you saw a poor man and you gave him. You didn't start measuring, is a holy man? How holy is he? Is he deserving? You just gave him. And that's the way Hashem reacted to you. He just gave you. Once you started making calculations to see who deserves more, he's holy, maybe his Rebbe is holier, his Rebbe maybe deserves more, I'll get more blessings. Once you started to make your calculations, Hashem decided to make calculations with you. Are you really deserving this kind of wealth? Maybe there's somebody else who deserves this more than you. And that is the message. And that's why the Alter Rebbe says elsewhere also, when we give tzedakah, there's a certain thing, a concept to give with no calculations. Don't ask, this person deserve it, doesn't deserve it, just give. Give tzedakah. And that's how Hashem reacts in kind. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says here, the idea that whatever we do, it triggers a similar act. And acting kind here draws the kindness from Hashem above. Continues the Alter Rebbe. וזהו שכוסף אל יסלל חכם בחכמסי. כי אם בזויס יסלל חולו כי אני השם עושה חסד חולו. This is the meaning of the verse. Let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, but in this let him glory in understanding and knowing me, but in such a manner that it brings about the fulfillment of the phrase that follows, for I am God who acts with kindness. So we thus see that wisdom is justifiably glorified when it leads to an act of kindness, which in turn evokes a reciprocal act of kindness from above. As the Alter Rebbe continues, Ki ha-chesed hu ha-mamshich ha-ya-chochma lemata. For it is chesed, the kindly conduct of men here below, that results in the fulfillment of the verse, I am God who acts with kindness, meaning with the chesed of asiyah, and that causes the vitality of chachma to issue downwards into the letters of speech, the source of all created beings. V'im lav arei nikris chachmas levadei. Now, in the absence of this kindly conduct, the Torah study that such a person undertakes is called his wisdom alone. It remains in heaven as an untapped resource in which that wise man cannot glory. And there is no downward flow of this life from it, God forbid. And that's why the Alter Rebbe continues. This explains what the Arizal said. There are two types of souls among Jews. There are those souls of the Talmidei Chacham, the Torah scholars, and those souls of those who do mitzvahs and give tzedakah. The above enables one to understand the statement of Rabbi Yitzchak Luria of blessed memory, that there are two kinds of souls among Jews. The souls of Torah scholars who engage in Torah study, the study of Torah, all their lives. And the souls of those who perform the commandments, occupying themselves with charitable and kindly deeds. Now, of course, those who study Torah need to give tzedakah, and those who give tzedakah also need to study Torah. But the question is, what is the primary focus of these people? The primary focus of those who study Torah, the neshamas of Talmidei Chacham, is to study Torah. Says the Alter Rebbe, Del Cha'ire, הרי גם תלמידי חכמים צריכים לעסוק בגמילוס חסדים. Now surely scholars too need to occupy themselves with acts of kindness. כמאמר הז"ל, שאפילו תורה אין להם. As our sages of blessed memory taught, what we just learned, whoever said that he has nothing but Torah and does no kindly deeds does not have even Torah. However, לשתלמידי חכמים שתירוסם איקה ורויב ימיהם בו ומיעוט ימיהם בגמילוס חסדים. However, as regards to Torah scholars whose study of Torah is their principal occupation, and most of the time is spent on it, with only a minor part of their time spent on the performance of kindly deeds, so the effect of their arousal from below to arouse the supernal chesed, where does it go? Where does their arousal reach? It is to bring down the level of the chachma, the higher chachma, God's revelation, into the world of souls through the Talmud, and which is in the world of Beria, and into the world of Yetzirah to study of the Mishnah. Again, to call forth and bring downwards the infinite Ein Sof light, vested in supernal Chachma, the source of God's Torah, which is in their mouths. Where do they bring it down? This godly revelation of Chachma, where do they bring it down? Says the Alter Rebbe, if they study the Talmud, that brings it to the world of Beria. It extends only to the realm of the souls that are in Beria, which is the second world, spiritual world, through their occupation with Gemara, with the Talmud. And extends to the angels that are in the world of Yetzirah through their occupation with the Mishnah. We explained earlier in the Tanya that the world of Talmud is the world of the intellect, which is the world of Beria. And Mishnah is more of do it, don't do it. It is more of, it's not so analytic like the Talmud. It is more of connected with emotions, like what is okay, what is not okay. And that is connected with the angels that are in the world of emotions, the world of Beria. And that is where the Talmidei Chachamim, the Torah scholars, they draw down this godly Chachma into this world of Bria and Yetzirah. For the animation of souls and angels derived from the combination of the letters and letters of speech, meaning the oral Torah, as it is written in Pasach Aliyot, that the sphere of Malchus corresponds to the mouth, which we call the oral Torah. The source of the letters, however, is in the supernal Chachma as mentioned above. So this is what the Torah scholars, they draw down the Chachma Elo to this world of Bria and Yetzirah. But in order to finish the job, in order to bring down the godly energy all the way down to this physical world, that is done through the acts of kindness. However, in order to call forth and bring downward an illumination and vitality from the level of the supreme breath to the lower hay, to this lowly world, as we said earlier in this letter, that the letter hay represents the speech, which represents the source of this physical world, which entails a greater and extreme contraction. So for that, it is not enough, or the Torah scholars do, we do also need the acts of tzedakah. The arousal from below by Torah scholars who, for only a small part of their time, engage in charitable and kindly deeds, that is not sufficient to bring it down here. Elo al yedei yisarusa de balei mitzvos, oiskim roiv yemeim betzdaka ugminas chasadim. This is effected only through the arousal by those who perform the commandments, who are occupied with deeds of charity and kindness for the major part of their life. As explained in the Likutei Amarim, part 1, the first part of the Tanya, chapter 34. That is why people who are mainly occupied with such mitzvahs, they are called the supporters of the Torah itself, meaning not supporters just financially. It is supporters meaning like the supporting beams that they draw down this light all the way down to this physical world. These people represent the levels of Netzach and Hod, which are analogous to the two thighs, which enable a man to stand on the ground. The foundation of spheres of Netzach and Hod is similar, because they cause the light of the Torah to issue downward to the world of Asiyah, which is the world of action. And that is why doing tzedakah is called action. Now it is clear why charity is referred to as an act, as it in the verse, and the act of charity will be peace. And why is that? Because the charity draws down God's light into the world of action. For the effect of charity is to elicit the light of God down to the world of Asiyah, the world of action. And now the Alter Rebbe goes back to the beginning of the letter, what he said. What the Zohar says regarding King David. It says, who makes God's name? The Zohar says, who makes God's name? That God's name should be meaning make from the word, from the concept of action. That it should be connected, God's name should be connected with the world of action. This is the meaning of the subtle phraseology of the Holy Zohar. Who makes the holy name, expressly saying who makes, because by an arousal from below through charity and mortal chesed, one arouses the supernal chesed, to elicit the infinite Ein Sof light from the supernal Chochmah, the Yud of the divine name, lehei shel shem, to the hey of the name, to the speech and breath of God's blessed mouth, in order to draw down divine light to the world of Asiyah. Now the Rebbe says that this is similar to the concept of speech. What is speech? Speech is something that you do, something so outside of you. You don't have to speak to yourself. You speak to something outside of you. The same thing is the idea of a name. A name you don't need for yourself. A name you need for something which is outside of you. And that is also in the same thing, making Hashem's name, meaning making Hashem, bringing his light to the outside of him, so to speak, the world of Asiyah, the world of action, this physical world. And analogously speaking, though infinitely incomparable, just as a human being speaks only to others, and not when he is alone. People speaking to themselves, you have to see a doctor. Although today people go in the street and speak to themselves all the time. But if you look carefully, there's something in the ear. So that's a different story. But in any case, here says the Alter Rebbe, that is the idea of making God's name. And then, when speaking to them, he contracts his intellect and thoughts to give it to them. And the intelligent will understand. And this is the end of this long letter. about making God's name. And bottom line is, it says about Moshe Rabbeinu that it says the Jewish people. It says they carried the bones of Joseph, and although we know that 40 years Moshe Rabbeinu took care of it, he was doing it. However, he didn't finish the job. Who finished the job? The Jewish people that went into Israel. They actually brought him in, and that is why it's considered that they did it. So the same thing is today. We are the ones who are here in the last generation of the Galus, the exile. We are the ones who, through our acts of charity, our acts of kindness, what we do, we are fulfilling God's mission in this world to complete the name of God right here in this world by drawing down Hashem's light into this physical world. Let's hope that this should happen very soon. Eliminate all of the problems of the world, all of the wars and all of the sicknesses. Everything will become to the full redemption with the coming of Mashiach. And have a Shavua Tov, a good Tevach.